Hey, my name is Steven. I am a graphic designer that focuses on editorial and packaging design. Today we're going to be reviewing my top K-pop albums of 2023.
Hey, this is Editing Steven. Just wanted to come pop into here. As I mentioned with the previous video, this series is being broken up into two parts, and this is the second part. I hope you enjoy.
What I do want to start out with is that these albums are in no particular order. It really doesn't make sense for me to rank what is the best and what is the worst, and that's why I'm focusing on my favorites from the year. In addition to this, as a whole for 2023, I'm a little bit disappointed in some of the design that came out from a lot of the groups. Now, K-pop is no stranger to sticking to trends and genres, and a lot of times that can translate into a span of over a few years before we get out of that trend cycle. This year is no difference, as we saw a lot of the trends over the past couple of years spill into 2023 as well. There's a lot of albums that focused on minimalism, a lot of gradients. We have a lot of albums that take aesthetics from the McBling, futuristic Y2K, and cybercore. A lot of strictly editorial-based albums, which to be frank is nothing new to K-pop. Photography and editorial work is coveted in K-pop album designs and concepts. And of course, fans love the photos. Photo card collecting is a huge aspect of K-pop album buying. So of course, albums are gonna lean more into photography. It isn't necessarily a trend in the last few years, but a trend that covers all of K-pop in all the different eras. Next up, we have a group that I really don't know much about, but when I was doing my research, this album really caught my eye. Forgive me, I don't know exactly how to say the group's name. It's either Trendz or Trendz, but it is their third single album, Still On My Way. Still On My Way tells a story of the members running towards their dreams. The album features 3 songs touching upon subjects of including passion, youth, hope, and energy. Like I said, when I was doing my research, this album really caught my eye. And what I really loved about it is it was very different from a lot of the albums that we saw this year. When I first glanced at it, I was like, oh, that's intriguing. And I was looking at the design and I was like, oh, I get this feeling. And I didn't even have to do any further research. I understood that there was this sense of being lost, carving a path, maybe this sense of hope. And there was an overall youthfulness of it. And even though a lot of these elements between the color, photography, and typography choices are pretty subtle, there's a really good sense of unity here. The photographic elements here have images of the member kind of scattered all around. There's a sense of like going nowhere, or they're all on different paths. This really pushes the tone of maybe being lost, or they don't know where they're going yet. I love the display font. I think it's expressive and gritty, and the color palette's really minimal. But again, a trend this year is these deep kind of navy and teal tones that create this sense of honesty and reliability and trust. And what's interesting is when you look at this album, or when I look at it, I get this idea that they may be lost or they're trying to find their way, but this color that they chose really grounds the design and creates this honesty where you're like, hey, this is a weird bumpy road we're on, but like, trust me, we will get to where we're going. And that's why I really like this design. And lastly, there's a really good use of negative space here. It allows all the elements to breathe while also creating movement throughout the design, which I think really speaks to the overall concept of the album. Next up, we have Cravity's 5th mini album, Masterpiece. Masterpiece brings together the best of Cravity's signature upbeat and youthful energetic sound while highlighting the message of paving your own path and writing your own story. It's a message that the group has always embodied on their journey so far, and one that they hope to inspire their fans. Again, what I love about this album is typography over photography. And out of all the albums this year, this album does it the best. I love that the grid allows all the typographic elements to fit seamlessly together. There's a great use of different serifs and sans serifs that create this very energetic tone and also establishes this idea of creating your own path. And like with most paths, nothing is linear. There's bumps along the way. To further emphasize this message, they create a lot of contrast and rhythm by playing with different sizes. And this also establishes a really nice hierarchy. You have a lot of different weights that are being played with and sizes, and this really allows for a really nice rhythm and movement. In addition to that, there's this really nice texture that's being established, and this is really hard to do, especially with trying to keep balance in mind. But this album design does it really well. I think what I really also love about this album is there's 3 different versions, and each version has a different color palette, and that to me was really thought of when it came to establishing the tone of the album. Because when you think about the message of the album about creating your own path in life, that involves different challenges and difficulties that happen along the way. And I think the various color palettes help establish that really well. The green version suggests this idea of harmony, trust, and growth. The peace version implies this really playful and dynamic energy, while the mono version kind of speaks to more this somber and dark side of the path of life. And this really creates a sense of unity, and all of the design elements work really well here in order to establish the tone. Next up, we have BTS's V and his mini album, Layover. In a Rolling Stones interview, V said, "I was experimenting with different genres and songwriting styles. He realized that he didn't want to just dash forward towards a final destination. He recognized that he was someone who needed to take detours, find new possibilities along the way, and just enjoy the journey. Instead of taking a direct route, you could stop somewhere and stay for a while, or take a transfer or do a layover." Similar to Key's album design, V kind of taps into a design that is very kind of kitschy and campy and something very real. And this specifically is like a piece of mail or a luggage, something that you would take with you on a destination or send home along the way. And that's why this design concept is super clever. I like the way that the varying design elements here play in with each other, creates this almost sense of collage that really speaks to the design concept, which is like a piece of luggage or a package being delivered. This also creates texture, variety, and movement that is really playful and energetic. The type choices here are really playful and expressive. There's a good balance between serifs and handwritten style, which I think establish a really good relationship, especially when it comes to legibility. And with that, there's something here that feels really intimate and personal. Much of the design components here don't really follow a strict grid, which I think plays really well into the casualness of this album design. There's something really kind of laid back and chill about it, which I really enjoy. When we get into the pieces that are typographic heavy, like the tracklist brochure, that's when a strict grid is implemented. And I think that was necessary in order to help establish the concept and also allow for legibility on a section of design that's really copy heavy. Color was used really sparingly here. I think the color palette choices of the blue, the green, and the purple are very lively and bold. It really speaks to this kind of excitedness when it comes to going on a trip, or maybe sending someone personal to you a package. With all the various design components, everything is working in harmony and nothing feels really out of place. Next up, we have the Concept Queens, Red Velvet's third album, Chill Kill, specifically the package version. Chill Kill, which carries the meaning of an event or entity that shatters silence, further raises expectations for the songs included. The lyrics of What a Chill Kill express the narrative of a love affair in which my world was turned upside down by the sudden appearance of Chill Kill, and it characterized by the duality of singing about hope and longing for the other person in the midst of a tragedy when a quiet life becomes incomplete. Now, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Red Velvet. They are my favorite girl group, one of my favorite groups ever, but I really love the way that they push boundaries when it comes to their concepts. All the various album designs create a really beautiful and dark story here, and establishes a really nice continuity. However, the package version really stood out for me. Overall, there is a feeling of something really dark and sinister here that's really beautiful and enchanting. Color plays a lot into that, in my opinion. There's almost this watercolor effect. It gives me this sense of isolation, almost like a flame being smothered. I like the way that the use of color interacts with the rest of the album design. When you take out the insert to get into the inclusions, the inner box is a full bleed of that color. I think it was very easy for them to maybe just continue the gradient or simply do the white instead, but I love that pop of color when you pull out the inclusions. This creates a really good sense of rhythm and movement and provides a really nice texture. And also what I really love about this album is the illustrations. It really harks back to their first album, Ice Cream Cake, which could be a nod to where they came from. Also, these illustrations create this very magical and supernatural feel. There's something almost very unreal about it, like from another world or lifetime. The design elements here between the illustrations, typography, and color palette are really delicate and balance the message and concepts of the track list really well. The editorials are a huge highlight for me. With most of Red Velvet's albums, the photography and editorials are such high quality, and I think it really is just an extension of what they're capable when it comes to conveying their concepts. When it comes to the typographic elements, you see a lot of handwritten fonts, almost giving this very intimate feel. It's like a journal or a diary of each member. There's a nice mix of serifs and sans serifs and handwritten fonts, which helps establish a really nice sense of texture while also playing into this intimacy feel. Like some of the other albums that I talked about today, one trend that kind of stuck out for me for this year was the inclusion of like a physical item, something that wasn't just an album. There was a perfume, a bag, and Red Velvet here in one of their album versions chose to do the bag. And finally, to round off my top K-pop album designs of the year is Shinee's Onew and his album Circle. The album comprises 10 songs, including the single Oh, Circle, singing various moments in life that anyone can sympathize with, such as loving and parting, expectation and disappointment, growth and anxiety. In Onew's peerless vocal tone and sensibility, the lyrics of Circle send a message by comparing our lives to nature, that the good and the bad things that each of us experiences seem different but are similar to each other in the end, like the season that returns every year in a different but similar feeling. The album's design and tone really leans into this somberness. You get a sense of displacement, feeling lost, and the ups and downs of traversing life. But there's something that always pulls you back. This idea of a cycle, a circle, much like nature, life and death kind of happens in rotation. And there's something very beautiful and kind of dark about that. I like the typographic choices here. There's something very delicate about it. The fonts are more rounded with their ligatures, which speaks to a very romantic and delicate side of the album. What I really liked about the typographic choices and how that plays into the other elements of the design is particularly the grid layout and how the grid breaks a more conventional layout. This really speaks to the way that the album can establish tension and this feeling of anxiety. And this is very good because there's a very good sense of texture here and direction. In combination with the grid layout, what I also like about it is there's a really good use of negative space in some of the elements. This creates hierarchy and rhythm, and there's parts where this is contrasted with a layout that is really congested with almost no negative space. And this complements the album's message very well and helps to establish a good sense of variety, which could provide a pretty lackluster design if there wasn't a good sense of value established. The color palette, which mainly consists of white, a beige, and a black, really lends well to the somberness of the album. There is tension here. There is a feeling of hopelessness and sadness. This idea of not knowing what's going to happen. The rest of the album utilizes photography to pull more of the concept together. There's a good mix of editorials here, which really speaks to the various tones of the album. And with the editorials, there's a really good sense of warmth and cool tones. And with the varying editorial pieces, which is common in all K-pop albums, what I really love about this is there's a good variation of editorials that are more cool toned and contrasted with warm tone. And to me, that really speaks to the duality of this album concept, you know, pulling ideas of, you know, disappointment and expectation, growth and anxiety, as well as, you know, just the good and the bad. Well, that's all my albums from this year. I would love to hear what your favorite K-pop album designs were from this year, because I did as much research as I can. Now, I do not know every single group out there, and of course, research comes with limitations. So if there are designs out there that you think should be on my list, or ones that you really loved, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to discuss more about what your favorites were. And I did just want to remind you that I'm on other platforms. I would love for you to follow me over on my TikTok as well as my Instagram. I post other graphic design content there, mostly around K-pop album designs, but I also do a little bit of lifestyle content, and I would love to share those aspects with you as well. Bye!